on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Now let's have some fun. Here is your host, Johnny Radio.
John is out this week. I believe I'm not divulging anything. He's in New Orleans for Jazz Fest.
I know John was a jazz fan.
Listen to some jazz.
That's right.
You like jazz?
I like jazz.
Well, that's a line from the B movie.
Oh.
You know, have you ever seen the B movie?
I have with yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
With who?
Jerry Seinfeld.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
It just takes you some minutes. It was on the tip of your
It
tongue.
was on the tip of my tongue, you know?
Yeah, no, he's in the B
Had to figure
movie.
it out.
It's not a good
Right.
movie.
It's a cult classic, though.
Yeah, it's right. A bee falls in love with a human woman.
Yeah.
And
Goes to court.
And that's right. And at one point he asks her when he's hitting on her, "You like jazz?" And so that's heavily memed across all whatever. Well, anyway, John's in New Orleans for Jazz Fest. I'm Jay Morgan Harder. Bryant Dacus is here as well.
Hello.
So we're going to be filling in all week. You can also hear Bryant this afternoon on Sports Time with Brett and Bryant.
That's me.
Bryant and Stats.
Yeah.
Sports Time.
You should open your Celsius. I could hear it on the
I know.
on the mic.
I was trying to find a way that I could do that without anyone hearing it. But I didn't want to turn my mic off because then I would just be staring at you and give you
Right.
You'd have to talk.
And I have to talk.
And there's no specific topic. This is just beginning banter we're doing here.
So you're gonna try to talk over it and have it under the desk, so
That's
maybe
right.
you could drown it out. It
That's
didn't
right.
work.
It didn't work.
No.
Well, we've got a lot of things to talk about today, though, and I'm sure this one's been talked about and tweeted about and talked about at your local watering hole and with your family over Sunday dinner, talked about to death. And you can imagine what that is, right, Bryant?
Yeah.
What is it?
The Grizzlies and their loss to the series loss to the Lakers.
It's the Grizzlies and their series loss to the Lakers. So that puts an end on their season. They lost by how many points, Bryant?
40.
They lost by a clean 40 points.
Poetic justice, some would say.
In what way?
Because Dylan said, "I don't respect anybody until they give me 40," and then the whole Laker team gave him 40.
Yeah, but the team, it's not. I think he was talking about an individual scoring 40 points on him, and that didn't happen.
That's right.
Although LeBron did have a 20-20 game in there, but it didn't happen in this one. And so the Grizzlies lose the series. It's an absolute shame. But I didn't really have much expectations for them. Not to be like, I told you so. But I think if you looked at it realistically, the Lakers were a really good team with a really good record after they made the trades and had this roster construction. They were playing their best basketball of the year, surging to even get this spot as the 7th seed, obviously having to win a play-in game, but regardless, surging to even get this spot. And the Grizzlies kind of went in the opposite direction. I think defending the three-point line was the only metric in which the Grizzlies graded better than the Lakers down the stretch of the season. No Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark. And I'm not hearing Steven Adams' name brought up as much as I would like, Bryant.
Really?
Are you?
No. I mean, I felt like that was kind of a built-in excuse for the Grizzlies. Is that
But excuse has such a negative connotation. It sounds like, why don't you just use this excuse? It's
well,
a fine excuse,
but
it's a reason. It's not
it's
a reason.
That's good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've been calling it an excuse too, and that has a certain connotation.
True.
You're like, we don't want to give excuses around here. The point is it wasn't good enough by the Grizzlies, and they need to make changes.
Right.
What changes?
Yeah.
How about two guys get healthy?
Two of your big men against one of the best big men in the league.
I mean, it's a great excuse in order to rebuild. You're touting the best home record in the league.
Yeah.
You're touting being the 2 seed. But the team that got you that seed is not the team that performed in the playoffs. It's not like that they just were so disappointing and lost to the Lakers because of that. They're missing their starting center and then their backup to that position.
Yeah.
They played a guy 40 minutes a game that would otherwise not play at all. Not 40 minutes a game, but he could play 40 minutes in one game. Played 20 in most of the other ones.
But, I mean, he was the starting center when if either one of those guys were healthy, if both of them were healthy, he wouldn't have seen a minute in the playoffs.
I agree. Anthony Davis also got like 20 rebounds one game.
Like every game.
19 rebounds in Game 4 or in Game 5.
Yeah, he was awesome.
15 rebounds in Game 6. So rebounding.
And stayed surprisingly healthy because there were a couple falls there that I was like.
In Game 1 when he hurt his
Game 1,
shoulder.
I think Game 3 maybe in LA he had a fall that I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. But played great.
So I think it's easily explained away, if you ask me. The
But,
matchup isn't good with the injuries.
Yes.
And then you don't have the depth you normally would have with the injuries either.
Yeah, but it's just so hard to find any way, even if it's a good reason, like I think the Steven Adams reason is, to say a 2-seed lost to a 7-seed. I think that's
but
where
that's
all the
so general.
No, I know.
You know what I mean?
But I just think I think people
that's
just
like
look
just
at
looking at it on its face alone.
Well, and I think that's what a lot of people do.
2 next to the Grizzlies and the 7 next to the Lakers.
2 means they're better, and then 7 means they're worse. I think that's how a lot of people look at it. A 7 isn't supposed to beat a 2, and so I think, especially what is it? Before this year, no play-in team had won a series, and then this year you got 2 play-in teams winning a series.
But the play-ins only existed for 3 seasons.
I know, but you haven't seen that as like people getting mad about that.
I have.
The no team has won a series out of the play-in. Now we've got 2 this year.
But
these teams at the top are bad.
Is 3 years and 2 teams on each
not
side
a
a year?
good
Is that a sample size that you can say? How often does a 7 or 8 seed normally win a series?
I mean,
it can't be any lower than that.
Right.
And obviously, this situation is totally different.
Extremely.
I feel like the excuse. Taylor Jenkins is getting blame. Obviously, Dylan Brooks is getting a lot of blame. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I'm just not hearing Steven Adams' name said enough at all.
No, I agree.
It's ridiculous.
I agree. And I know we'll get.
But I don't mean to interrupt you either.
Good.
But it's like talking out of both sides of your mouth when you talk about that stuff. Like talking about what a failure it is and blaming players, but not mentioning that he wasn't. That Steven Adams wasn't available there. You can't be super critical and also acknowledge that he wasn't playing. This isn't the roster that they built.
Right.
And injuries are a part of the game.
Sure.
A lot of good teams in the league deal with injuries and still win in the playoffs, but those are teams that would have more depth than what the Grizzlies had. And I don't really hear a lot of criticism of the depth either.
It's also
like Dylan Brooks in the starters, but no one's mentioning Steven Adams. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I think usually the teams that have success in the playoffs while dealing with injuries are the teams that have found success before. They're the veteran teams that have done it in the playoffs
added pieces to a team that was already in place in that regard.
And so the Grizzlies just aren't there yet. Maybe in a year or 2 they will be, but they're just not there yet. But you're right.
There's positions that the Grizzlies do have depth for.
Yeah.
Center wasn't one of them. No. But how many teams could survive, especially the center position in the NBA, with how big guys are and how they're banging? You just saw the Kings arguably lose a series because Sabonis isn't a traditional 5 size. So how important that position is to lose your starter and your backup.
Yeah.
The significance of that is not just losing a starter. That is a hugely important position to win in the playoffs.
And I think another part of it is the matchup itself, because I think you might have still lost the series, but I think it would have been a different series against the Timberwolves. But you're playing the Los Angeles Lakers, who got better at the trade deadline, much better at the trade deadline by adding pieces, and you're also going up against one of the best centers when he's healthy in the league. And so I think that's a big part of it. I don't think you can just look and say, well, the Grizzlies are bad. They lost a first-round series. They're playing a good team that has a great center on it in a mismatch when you don't have a center.
One of the best players in the league, I think, is what I would say, too, because I think in this next series for the Lakers, and we'll talk more about the other series in a minute, if Kevon Looney plays like he did Game 7 yesterday, that's going to be a problem. He's going to he's going to bang with Anthony Davis. They might go small.
Yeah.
We've seen them match up size-wise with like Draymond at the 5 against teams that are built like the Lakers, so they might do that. But Looney was dominant on the boards yesterday, and that could pose a problem for Anthony Davis.
Times.
The Grizzlies just didn't have the horses at the 5 to match up with that.
And rebounding in general, we've seen after Steven Adams got injured how bad this team was in the rebounding category.
Went from the best offensive rebounding team to I don't know if it was the worst, but it was the
bottom
10.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then their ability to finish games down the stretch, like I'll say last 4 or 5 minutes of a game, directly correlated with the offensive rebounding numbers, and I would say defensive rebounding numbers either, just limiting second opportunities. Yeah. I think both of those you can point directly to the absence of Steven Adams there.
Sure.
It's not an excuse. It's a reason. It's the reason why they lost the series. It's the reason why that, obviously, things are blown out of proportion in our market by our love for the Grizzlies, and I would even say by the national media world because of how big a market Los Angeles is and how much a lot of those people are based there and love the Lakers. So there's a national media bias, there's a local media bias, and we didn't get a whole lot of objective looking at this series, the way the season has transpired from both teams before going into it. But I think if you had done that, you would see, wow, one of these teams is trending in a certain direction and the other one's in another direction due to injuries. And I think you really could have predicted the series going this way.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it was you don't have your starting center that like you just said, it correlates. It was a big piece.
So that goes into that. What do you think about the rhetoric of, especially coupled with, I saw Ethan Strauss wrote something about this, about Giannis's talk of failure and the lack thereof that he feels exists in the sport, at least in basketball or in the sports world. I was surprised how big of a defense media and fans came to Giannis for basically denouncing failure.
Yeah.
And it's people that talk on TV and the radio, which if we're not allowed to call players and teams failures, we're going to have trouble filling 10 hours a day of talk radio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I agree with Giannis, but I was surprised by how much other people agreed with Giannis. How much failure talk do you think you're hearing in this market today after the Grizzlies lost? A lot, right?
I feel like it's a lot. It's a lot of, especially if you go on Twitter, and I know, Twitter. But
but I think that's people
the
talking on
gauge.
Twitter is exactly what we're doing on the radio.
That's true.
They just do it in instant time, under 100 and however many characters.
And I think you've seen a lot since the season ended of, we got to blow this team up. I don't know if I trust this front office as much as I did at the beginning of the season. Look at this guy we need to go trade for. Look at this guy we need to go trade for. Goodbye, Dylan Brooks. It's a lot of but that's also like you said, fandom and just instant, I'm mad because my team lost, we got to do something different talk. Maybe that will die down as the offseason goes on. With Dylan, I don't think so, but
But this existed last offseason
right.
as well.
That's
Everyone
true.
wanted to trade Dylan Brooks last offseason
Yep.
because of his playoff performance. They also wanted to trade DeAnthony Melton last offseason because he didn't make enough threes in the playoffs, and they did.
And
but that would have been
he's been pretty good this playoffs.
Been very good in the playoffs, been very good all season for them. He would be a player that you would like to have, especially if you do think Dylan Brooks wasn't getting it done and needed to be put on the bench. They had nobody to do that with because Dylan Brooks was, if you gauge the public, where was Dylan Brooks' biggest deficiency?
This season or
in the
postseason? In the playoffs, shooting.
Offensive, right?
Yeah.
Whereas who do they put in to replace him most of the time?
David Roddy?
Luke Kennard.
No, Luke Kennard. That's right. Before Luke Kennard got injured.
And they couldn't put Luke Kennard on the floor before he got injured because he couldn't guard.
That's right.
And so you have both.
One side.
So
or the
wouldn't
other,
you like to have D'Anthony Melton, who
can do both?
Who I know he was criticized last year for his inability to shoot when the playoffs came around.
Yeah.
But outside of that, those two series, the sample size of his ability to shoot,
he was the most
is robust.
He was one of the most loved players on this team, and people would say he was the most effective player on the team up until people started hating him during the playoffs.
So I think if you could point to something that the front office should have done differently,
it was keep Melton.
But that's also totally retroactive, right? I'm looking back at the way things transpired this year.
Sure.
Would I have predicted Steven Adams and Brandon Clark go down? No.
Not at all.
And I think they could have...
Or be out as long as especially Steven Adams was.
And I think the Grizzlies could have competed at a higher level towards a championship.
Sure.
Even without D'Anthony Melton, if those pieces were on the floor.
Yeah.
But if I'm just looking at something that they could have used in this series, it would have been guard depth in that regard.
Yeah.
To have
For
a
sure.
player like Melton to come in there and not be a defensive liability and still have an ability to shoot on the other end.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say that too. But then you also look at Jake LaRavia.
I was just about to say that.
Who you could say they traded Melton for Roddy, or you could say they traded him for LaRavia.
Really,
they were
either
picked,
or.
exactly.
I mean,
they were picked back to back.
Yeah.
We don't know who they would have drafted. I think they would have drafted Roddy, even though they drafted him second, instead of taking LaRavia.
Right.
I could be wrong about that. But if the trade is just LaRavia for Melton, well, hell yeah, I'd like to have Melton back in this series.
Of course.
But, that's also looking at it retroactively.
But I think that's part of it is I think this front office thought that LaRavia would have been a bigger factor by this point.
No way.
You don't think so?
I think
Well, their
Roddy
depth-
exceeded all expectations in what he could contribute to this roster.
Well, yeah, but think about it. Like,
And I don't think they expected anything out of Laravia.
but there was no depth this year at the wing position, really.
Laravia ain't a wing either, though.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
a 4 at best. And
That's true.
he certainly can't guard 3s.
No.
I'm not even convinced he can guard 4s.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's looking at him right now. Who knows how he develops?
Sure.
He's got size and things of that nature. Right coaching
Well,
in
and
place,
also
guys
you got to
develop
think
in-
that
in
they probably
unbelievable
thought
ways.
Zaire would be more of
Also
a
thought
factor
Zaire
this
would be
year.
more of a factor. So are you going to call it, I don't want to just use the word failure because then we're going to start to hear synonyms. Not that you and I move the needle for anybody, but I don't want to just say failure. It's like, do you think it was failure? Well, that's too harsh a word. I would call it
A disappointment.
disappointment, unsuccessful, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever synonym you want to use, are you going to call it a failure?
No.
I don't think so. I will either.
No. I mean, like I said, I think
Success is not linear. It's not
yes.
just like it goes in one direction.
Well, and I also
And 2 centers on the team are hurt, and we found out one of them might be the most valuable player on the team.
which I don't think anybody would have thought of going into the season.
No,
or
he
even
didn't
when you
even
acquired
play. He didn't even play.
Last
They
playoff.
set him
Yeah.
against the Timberwolves at the end of
Yeah.
that in that playoffs run, which I didn't agree with that either. But they won the series, so
Yeah.
who am I to say?
But I think
But
a
they
lot
also
of
had Brandon
times-
Clark available in
That's
that
true.
series too. Sorry, go ahead.
I just think a lot of times when you talk about failure or disappointment in terms of a team, I think that's more directed to the front office and over a span of time. Like, I don't think you can just look at 1 year and be like, this is a disappointment. I think it's like like the Chicago White Sox, where like it looked like they were going to be a team that could compete at the highest level, and now they've won 8 games this year, and so people are saying this is a failure of the front office, this is a disappointment, because now a lot of people are thinking you're going to have to move on from a lot of these players.
I won't even go cross-sport reference for you. I'll go right to the Denver Nuggets,
yeah.
who now, I mean, I go back and forth between them and the Warriors, but they would be 2 of my favorite teams
Sure.
to make it out and go to the NBA Finals and represent the West.
Yeah.
Whereas Denver has been knocked out of the first or second round of the playoffs under this current roster construction. A lot of that's due to injury.
Yeah.
But that narrative gets pushed by the wayside, or it doesn't even come forward, just like the Steven Adams being absent isn't even coming forward.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, Jamal Murray just can't contribute to a championship team. They didn't even play in the playoffs up until this year. And so I don't even think you have to go very far to say it's not a failure.
Right.
And I think the Denver Nuggets are an example of that.
Good point.
And also, it's damn hard to win a championship in the NBA,
Sure is.
especially amidst all of these dynastic teams like the Warriors are in the Western Conference. They barely even made it into the playoffs this year. Can you say that? Can I say they barely made it in the playoffs?
Yeah.
They weren't a play-in team,
Right, but
they were teetering right around there.
Yeah.
And I picked them as the favorite out of the Western Conference, and I don't think I would be alone on that. I think a lot of people would say that they're a favorite coming out of the
Sure.
Western Conference in that regard.
Sure.
So I think
Certainly top 2 or 3.
So I think it's very difficult to do. What would be the judgment? So losing in the first round's a failure.
Yeah.
Would losing in the second round be a failure? Yeah, because they did it last year, right? What if they lost in the Western Conference Finals? Is that, well, we built on what they did last
Right.
year, so that would be the mark
Yeah.
of failure versus not a failure. If they got swept in the second round, or if they took it to 7 games, is that what is this arbitrary line that we're
Right.
setting for the success or failure of the season? And furthermore, who the hell are we in the media to decide what a success or failure
Yeah.
is for these gentlemen?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That sort of rhetoric doesn't exist
Right.
in reality within circles of a college basketball program, a professional basketball program. And I'm going to go out on a limb and assume professional franchises in other sports too.
Yeah.
It's just not legit. They're not sitting around the front office table today talking about failure and how to fix it.
Right.
They're not talking about it in the coach's office the day after the
No.
loss. The word failure doesn't come up. It's totally a media
Well,
invention.
it's a fandom thing, too.
It's absolutely
Yeah,
a fandom
because-
thing. Fandom
because-
in the media.
Because you look at your team and you get all excited at the beginning of the season. Look at this guy, this guy, this guy. This team can compete for a championship.
Well, and you have no bearing as a fan
Right.
about the journey they're taking.
exactly.
You hate losses.
Exactly.
Not to say that players dislike losses, but newsflash, the glory of sport consists of the thrill of victory
Yep.
and the agony of defeat. It's always going to have both. You're going to have some seasons where it's 50-50, or some where the Grizzlies win as many as they did last year and not lose very many.
Yeah.
And there's some that go the other way. And all of part of that is a journey
Yep.
to success. I guess, again, that's fairly arbitrary as well. But I just think this talk of failure is so fan-centric, and I understand that we're in the media and we're talking to fans. like the audience that I'm trying to talk to here saying that sort of thing is not realistic.
Yeah.
The people we're talking to don't care
Sure.
because no one on the Grizzlies is listening. No one in the Grizzlies front office is listening.
Nah.
No one in any other franchise's front office or team are listening. So I'm literally only talking to fans. But I would just say maybe think about your perspective on these sorts of things and how you could possibly change it to be more in line with what the franchise is going through.
Yeah.
That's very preachy. I apologize.
It was. But I think it's all part of it. I mean, it's all part of fandom. Like, I think there's
Doesn't have to be though. It doesn't have to be.
Well, I think there's a fine line between.
You could think about it objectively if you want. If you really wanted to.
Yes.
If you really wanted to take a step back.
Sure.
And just enjoy this series against LeBron James.
Exactly.
And said Steven Adams is out. This is a tough matchup. You could have enjoyed it. In fact, I have fans that consider themselves very big Grizzlies fans that could see it from that perspective.
Well, I consider myself a big Grizzly fan. I love the Grizzlies.
Really?
And I was with my brother, who's a big Grizzlies fan, and one of my buddies watched every game, all three of us. And we were all able to kind of, not my buddy, it took a little time. We had to kind of talk him out of it. But you were able to kind of sit and be like, man, this Rui Hachimura guy is good. And kind of appreciate the games and be like, well, this team's without Steven Adams. If they lose, it's not the end of the world.
And the matchup deficiencies were staring you in the face if you watched the 6 games. So you should have known. I mean, I shouldn't say you should have known. You're cheering on your team. That's just the way it goes. But the evidence for what was going to transpire was clear to me within the first game,
You're also
first 2 games of the series.
basketball savant. I mean,
it's not rocket science, Brian.
Not.
If you just pay attention,
It's
you
not.
could see it too.
I know.
Not rocket science.
Yeah.
I don't possess any special abilities to see something that other people can't see.
It's fun to think you do, though.
It's
superpower.
Very much is fun to think I do. I had one more thing to say, but I forgot what it was, so it doesn't really matter, I suppose.
Well, we can always
we'll circle back
wagons,
and talk about this a little bit later. When we come back, though, we're going to take a break. We have to pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about something different.
Join the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin, for Wolo and Friends. Weekday mornings from 10 to 11, here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
This is Sheldon Rosengarten with Marks Bensdorf Realtors. I'm often called Shell Done because I sell homes and work with buyers and I get the job done. There are 7 keys to successfully selling your home quickly at a great price. First, call me. I do my research and advise you on preparation, presentation, and proper pricing that gets you the activity to get the best price. Follow my advice and it can happen. I did mention 7 keys to a successful sale, didn't I? Well, if you use the first key, calling or emailing me, you really don't need the next 6 keys. Remember, that's Sheldon Rosengarten at 483-0546 or MemphisRelocate.com. If you don't need me now, write it down for later or for a friend at Sheldon at 483-0546 at MemphisRelocate.com. Do it now, and who knows, you may hear your home advertised here. Remember, as bad a golfer as I am, when selling homes, Sheldon gets it done.
Dr. Rick here. Another sign you're becoming your parents is getting particular about details that don't matter.
The craziest thing happened when we got tacos the other day. Was it Wednesday or Thursday we got tacos? I know it wasn't Tuesday because that's when I went to my hairdresser. Shoot, what day was it?
See how we all lost interest there?
Progressive can't help you from becoming your parents, but we can help you compare rates on home insurance with Home Quote Explorer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Is your check engine light on? Let our professional parts people scan and diagnose the problem for free. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hi, this is Lauren Choate with Choate's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Plumbing. Now that the warmer weather has arrived, let Choate's perform their $99 20-point AC tune-up to get your AC ready for the hot summer months ahead. Also, Choate's is offering our half-off 1 pound of Freon coupon on our website for you to use. Does your HVAC system need to be replaced? If so, right now is an excellent time to take advantage of Carrier's 60 months, no-interest financing on select systems. Want to improve your indoor air quality? Choates is also offering our new APCO air purifier for $100 off when you get your air ducts cleaned. UV technology sterilizes biological contaminants and neutralizes odors and toxic VOCs. Match that technology with getting your air ducts cleaned, and you'll have the indoor air quality your family needs. Better call 347-8086 today. These specials won't last long. Turn to the experts with Choates and let our family serve your family.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Now back to Sports 56 Happy Hour on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Here once again, Johnny Radio.
We'll bank that Grizzlies discussion for later. Mm-hmm. We have to talk about the other series, too. We got to get to that.
A lot of NBA to talk about.
A lot of the league.
Time.
It's playoff time in the city.
That's right.
No, not in the city. It's still.
It was playoff time.
Still
in
watch
the city.
the playoffs.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Still super compelling. How much do you think that NBA discourse will die down in this market?
Incredible.
Now, me too. Isn't that a shame? It's the
Yeah.
damn NBA playoffs.
The NBA playoffs.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But
And
I mean,
we can only look at it through our lens of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares about this league otherwise? The ratings are bad, Bryant.
Yeah.
This isn't the National Football League. This isn't the Southeastern Conference. It doesn't mean more in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Southeastern Conference football.
That's right. Not basketball.
Right.
Football.
You think that could be, I don't know, weighed at all because they only play once a week on the same day every week?
Maybe.
Do you think all things equal other than that? No, probably the market demands that
Probably.
no one talks about
That's
the
right.
NBA anymore. Right. It's just not popular.
Nobody
enough.
wants to hear about it.
It's not popular
Grizzlies
enough.
are out.
Go woke, go broke, Bryant.
That's right.
My next topic I wanted to talk about here has nothing to do with the Grizzlies whatsoever.
Good.
In fact, it has to do with television that you can watch now that the Grizzlies are done.
You need something to watch?
And that is they're in the third season of a fine program that got really popular, I guess, at the start of COVID. It's called Ted Lasso. I'm assuming most people have heard of the show Ted Lasso at this point. If you haven't already seen it, they're in the third season. They're in the third season right now. 7 episodes they've done? 6, 7?
Something like that.
Something like that. Somewhere around there in the third season. It's being rumored, and they're pretty hush-hush about it. Just won't be very committal either way. But it seems like this is probably the last season of Ted Lasso.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And I think it's gone through some changes, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso to this point, I'm not going to spoil anything for you. We're just going to talk about it in kind of general terms here. But you've been watching this season of Ted Lasso.
I have.
Do you enjoy it?
I do. I like it. I think I don't know. I like some of the characters a little bit more. I think they've put more depth to some of the characters.
They have to as time goes by.
But I've enjoyed it. I mean, I think they're kind of the thing about Ted Lasso is it's a very fun, happy, uplifting show, but also they tackle some pretty serious topics.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to get into here. First of all, my buddy asked me this. My buddy texted me this weekend. I was talking about the last episode of Ted Lasso I had just watched, and he said, "Are we sure Ted Lasso is funny, or did we just really like it the first season, and it's really not as funny as we gave it credit for?" How do you feel about that question?
I think it's still funny.
I agree.
I think
I laugh.
But I think I can see where you probably don't think it's as funny because, like I said, I think they are kind of tackling more issues in this season than they have certainly in past seasons.
Well, I think the tone has changed significantly.
Yes.
So Bill Lawrence, who was the show creator along with Jason Sudeikis, he created shows like Scrubs and Cougar Town with Courtney Cox. So he's made other shows. I don't know if anyone's seen those two. Scrubs is one of my favorite shows. Super funny,
Very
super
popular
hilarious,
show, yeah.
but also kind of plays that role of it's a traditional sitcom, but kind of handles serious things. They work in a hospital.
Right.
You know what happens mainly in hospitals is people die
Death.
from time to time.
Correct.
And they have to deal with that in a serious way. They can't shy away from it or make it too silly.
Sure.
So that's an aspect of the show, is the seriousness along with being a sitcom. So Bill Lawrence was the showrunner originally with Jason Sudeikis. And I believe last season they kind of did it together, but like clearly shifted to have Jason Sudeikis take it over entirely. And this season, I don't even think Bill Lawrence is involved. It's
Really?
all Jason Sudeikis showrunning.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And I think the tone of the show has changed dramatically in that regard. And what I mean is that in season 1, you kind of like exactly what you just described. Very silly, but very uplifting, right?
Sure.
Like a really good story.
Well, because that's what everyone was saying, like, during
This
COVID.
is so
it was like,
happy.
this is the fun show to watch. It'll get your mind off of the bad things going on.
And I don't think the humor has died down, but I think that the storylines and the tone of the show has shifted much darker now,
Yes,
I would say.
I agree.
With Ted's dealing with his divorce and
what comes with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And separations of relationships in the show, no spoilers. Yeah. Separations of relationships, not like platonic relationships too. Yeah. Again, not to spoil anything. Right. But I think it's taken on a much darker tone in that regard. And I could see how that could turn people off in some way. Or maybe you just sense the darkening of the tone. You go, is this as funny as it used to be? Or maybe just that balance takes away from the comedy because some of the tones are so dark. But it's still really funny.
It is. No, there's some really funny parts of it.
No spoiler, but this season there is a character called Zava. And he is one of the funniest television characters I think I've ever seen.
Just the makeup. Not like what he does is funny, but like just the character itself is hilarious.
Zava, in look, he looks exactly like Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yes.
If you know what Zlatan looks like, kind of like a bird. He does. Does Zlatan not look like a bird?
Kind of.
And they've described the character of Zlatan as a mix between. I'm sorry. They've described the character of Zava as a mixture of Zlatan and Aaron Rodgers, and you kind of hear it in the way he talks. It's like. Sounds like he's saying something very profound, but sometimes it's just stupid and like mundane, and it's not really profound at all. But you're like, he said it like it was really profound. Maybe that's genius.
Yes.
And they all love him. They all think he's a legend. So he's a great character, and I think that, if you're looking at humor in that regard,
that's funny.
Zava's a great character.
Hilarious.
Coach Beard comes out of his shell and is funny. Is super
really funny. I think. Now I'm blanking on his name.
Roy Kent.
I think Roy Kent's funnier this season than he's been in past seasons.
I agree. Because in season 1, he came in as a very serious character.
Always mad.
In season 2,
which is funny. But.
In season 2 last year, he had to go through that own. There's another darker quality of like because he retired at the end of season 1. I'm just going to assume everyone's seen season 1.
Sure.
If you don't want to hear any of this, maybe turn your radio down, but make sure you come back and listen to us at 11:45. Yeah. But just turn it down for a minute if you don't want spoilers on the show.
Right.
Or maybe us talking about it
will lead you to watch it.
Makes you want to watch it again, even with spoilers. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's a great show. But you saw Roy Kent's character in season 1 ending his retirement, but he was very prickly in that season. And then he had to deal with the acceptance of retirement and opening himself up to a relationship and all these other factors that came with his quality. And this season, he has been able to sit back and be very much pure comic relief.
Yes.
One episode sees him punch a whiteboard in a really funny way.
Yeah.
He's just in this past episode, the way he snickers and laughs is hilarious. It's very funny stuff. His development I've enjoyed a lot as well.
Really funny.
Yeah, tons of good character development that way, but like you said, a lot more darker tones.
Well, more serious topics, I think. And another thing that I could see kind of,
and I see that directly correlated to Jason Sudeikis taking over too. By the way, that's why I mentioned.
Now
it.
that you say that, I agree because I didn't know that.
You can see it take place like
you
that.
really can, and I feel like there are more topics that are more like maybe issues that are like political issues here in America, but they're over in England, so they're kind of forming it in ways where it's like for a fact they're kind of pointing back to like something that's happening here, but
or
they're
it could
just
be happening there too.
Or it could be, I don't know what's happening in England, so I shouldn't say it like that. But you're right, like it's definitely issues that like we deal with here in America that like political figures are like arguing over every day, and so they kind of bring that into like an aspect, and they have like obviously picked a side on it.
That was a big topic in this past episode. For instance.
I could see how that could like make people a little upset.
But there's also like personal acceptance of who you really are in that regard too.
Yes.
That also could be seen as a political issue, and all those types of things. So you're right about that. Very much pointing, almost getting pointing the finger back at society itself, right?
Yeah.
Not just being a story center, like in the way that like The Simpsons or like South Park has developed.
Yeah.
It's no longer necessarily about the characters themselves. It's very much pointing the finger back at society and taking things that are happening in real life and putting it back there. But I love the show. I just thought
I think it's a good show.
When my buddy asked me, he goes, "Do you think it's as funny as it used to?" I thought that was an interesting line of thinking and how the show has changed and morphed over time.
Yeah.
But I still think it's as funny as ever.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny in different ways than it was in season 1.
Yeah, very much.
I think there were just like straight up jokes in season 1, where now they're like still jokes, but like they're deeper in like other ways
like
that are
Zava.
funny. Like
for
Zava
instance.
is extremely deep and hilarious at the same time.
Right. The character itself, his makeup, who he is funny. Whereas it's not just like he says funny jokes. Who he is, his character, the depth of the character is very funny.
But there's also like just still like the same jokes you would see in season 1. Like they do a good job.
I agree.
Like
I was about to say
one
that.
of my favorite jokes of this whole season, I think, is when Spoiler alert. But if you're still listening, then you've
already seen it. Right.
Ted Lasso, who is from America and is now coaching an English Premier League team, finds an American burger joint, and he walks in, and the waiter who is about to seat him goes, howdy, partner. And he goes, oh, what part of the States are you from? And he goes, oh, no, I'm from Sydney, mate. And it's hilarious.
He's from Australia.
It's so funny. And so, like, still, like, that's something you would see in season 1.
And they have different sections of the restaurant, not to go too into detail, but there's like New York, Chicago, all these things. And he goes, where do you want to sit? He goes, put me in the Windy City. And the guy just gives him a blank stare because he's not from America.
He has
doesn't
no
know
idea.
what the Windy City is. No, that's a very funny joke. You're
hilarious.
Right. I wanted to go into more detail about what happens there because it's very funny.
Very funny.
Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I think the show's as good as ever. And if it's the last season, I recommend you get caught up and watch a little bit of it because I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think it's good. It might not be the last season either. We don't know, but all signs are kind of pointing to.
Interesting.
It is. One more thing. We're almost out of time here for this segment. Then we'll get to the end of this, and we got to talk about the NHL playoffs as well because that's been electric.
Sure has.
But I have been on a binge. The most popular, Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus, by the way. The most popular show on TV today, seemingly, if you gauge the public, this might not actually be accurate, but it seems like the most popular show on television is a show called Succession, Brian.
I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
I've heard a lot of people talk about it as well. It's very popular. It's also a comedy drama of sorts, but in a very different way, much more like Martin Scorsese, like sex, drugs, rock and roll, but instead of rock and roll, it's billion-dollar business deals. Essentially, the premise of the show is that it's a family like the Murdochs that own all these things, newspapers, news entities, all these different things, and they have billions of dollars, and he has 4 kids, but 3 of his 4 kids are really competing for the throne as to who will succeed. And they're in season 4 right now. Season 4 is the last season. I didn't particularly like season 1. I have binged this over the past 2 weeks it's taken me, and now I am caught up with the new episode was last night. It was the 6th episode.
Sure.
I am now here. I'm here with everybody else that's watching the show. I'm all the way there because I just wanted to give it a try and see what it was all about. The first season of the show I did not like.
But the second season.
I liked the second and third better, but I was still like, how is this the most popular show in the world? I was like, I must be missing something. It could just be the sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect.
Sure.
Like, Wolf of Wall Street's a fine movie, right?
Yes.
But people love it. You know what I mean? People love The Wolf of Wall Street. Like, it's the best movie they've ever made.
Right.
I think it's that sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect. I think male and female alike like it, but to me it seems like that very aggro male, like that's what it's all about.
Success party.
I love uppers. Like this is what you have to take uppers to be successful in this life. $1 billion, $million deals, money, money, money. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll is the way I describe it. Even though rock and roll is not a factor at all. That's a lot.
What's the rock and roll lifestyle?
That's right, the rock and roll lifestyle. That's a lot what Succession is like. But the first 3 seasons, I saw it as like, you know when you go to like a Redbirds game or a baseball game or any sporting event really, they sometimes have the videos of like the rally cars going and you pick, it's red, green, and blue, and you have to pick one. And at the beginning, the red car's going to win at the beginning.
Man, it blows them all
blown
out.
away, and then something horrific happens, and then you got green and blue in first. Oh, it looks like green's going to win. Oh, there's blue taking over. Oh, red is back.
Yeah.
That's what the first 3 seasons of Succession is like. It's just going round and around in circles. Literally nothing. It seems like something is going to happen, but nothing ever really happens. It's just things going back and forth. Then they get to season 4. And I don't want to spoil what happens, but season 4, there was a moment There's been multiple moments where I go, this is why this is the most popular show in America. The story they're telling in season 4 is the show. So it's like they've just been setting up who these characters are
for 3
years to tell the story that they're telling now.
So they're in season 4 right now.
And it's the last season.
Do you think, like, everyone because you're right. I mean, I hear everyone talk about this. Do you think everybody's watched the first 3 seasons, or do they just jump off? Really?
I do.
Interesting. Because I've never heard about it before,
but
this year.
People loved the first 3
I thought
seasons.
this was the first season of it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think it's getting a lot more traction because it's the last season. Everyone wants to see the end.
Sure.
You know, it's like some seminal moment to watch the last episode of a series. How Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul earlier this year. That was a big seminal moment. Oh, I got caught up on Better Call Saul so I could watch the end with everybody kind of thing.
Stupid.
So I think similar. Well, that's a good show, though.
Well, I just think the whole aspect of, like, we got to watch the last season.
People don't do that anymore, though. There's only appointment television for sports.
True.
It's very traditional, Brian. Yeah, I like it. I'm here to watch things. Okay. It's literally why I've been grinding this show. I want to see the end of it.
Oh, you're one of the people I'm calling stupid.
Yeah, you are.
I'm sorry.
I am. But I just watched the show. I love the 4th season. This is the story they were trying to tell. If I would recommend the show to somebody, I would say read about the character's history going into the 4th season
and just
watch the 4th season. There is like character development. Like one of the sons, Kendall Roy, goes through like these manic episodes of like total happiness and then like the lowest of lows. And I think it mirrors his drug use as well. No spoiler alert there. But I would say that all that stuff is fairly inconsequential. They just went round and around in circles for 3 years. And what they're doing now, this is the show. It really is unbelievable. I can't recommend season 4 enough based on what I've seen so far. It's really good. And also, if you're looking for an HBO show, I've wasted all my time here talking about TV. I got to get off and we got to go to a break. But you got to watch Barry season 4. Barry is on another level of Succession. Succession's a good show, but it's a TV show, very much a TV show. Point being where up until this season, you have to finish the episode where you started.
Right.
Nothing can happen so that you can write the next episode in the next season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything has to go in a circle. Whereas Barry, I think, is very well thought out. It's very cinematic in nature, both in writing, in acting, in cinematography. Not a lot of people care about the way things are shot, but it really is beautiful. It goes back to like Coen Brothers movies, which are like The Big Lebowski, if you like The Big Lebowski. Fargo, Raising Arizona, Oh Brother Where Art Thou. A lot of those shots are, you could take screenshots as pictures and they would be beautiful on your wall. That is the way Barry is shot, and it's also a hilariously funny story. It's got a lot of good action in it. It's also a blend of comedy drama, but I think it blends the comedy drama in a way. The dramatic storyline itself is inherently ridiculous. It makes it hilarious, and I think it blends these two factors in a way. Like we were talking about with Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Sometimes how dramatic it is takes away from how funny the jokes might be to lead people to maybe think this isn't as funny as it used to be. Barry, the dramatic storylines detract nothing from how funny it is, and you'll laugh throughout it, top to bottom. And it's also beautifully shot, like one of the great cinematic masterpieces you've ever seen. I can't recommend Barry season 4 enough. My power rankings of the 3 shows I talked about would be, you got to watch Barry. Watch Ted Lasso. And if you have time, watch Succession. I would start with season 4, though. Back after this, we got to talk about the NHL playoffs.
Listen in for the Showboat Showcase on Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Greg and Eli will talk with guests from the Memphis Showboats and give you a chance to win tickets to upcoming games.
At Jason's Deli, when you're dining in or picking up curbside, you can expect wholesome food and no surprises, just delicious sandwiches, crisp salads, and quick quality meals made with the freshest ingredients and no artificial trans fats, MSG, high fructose corn syrup, or artificial colors and dyes. Around here, a lot of thought goes into what we put into our food and what we take out of it, because you're not just taking a bite, you're getting a taste of who we are. New items are constantly being created to expand our menu for all tastes and special diets with vegan and gluten-free options available. Convenience and on-time delivery you can count on. It's just a click away at jasonsdeli.com, so whether you need to feed 5 people or 5,000, the team at Jason's Deli, they have the credentials and the commitment to keep you satisfied. Freshness is nearby at Jason's Deli with locations at Ridgeway in the Park Place Center, Poplar and Highland, Germantown Road in Cordova, and on Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Jason's Deli. It's wholesome food and no surprises.
Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO, Showtime. How many streaming services are you paying for? If only there was a way to track and cancel subscriptions easily. Well, there is. Just download the Rocket Money app. Rocket Money organizes your subscriptions by due date and notifies you when something is coming up. From there, decide whether to keep it or cancel it with just a tap in the app. To find out more about Rocket Money, go to rocketmoney.com/save or download the Rocket Money app from the Apple app or Google Play stores. Rocket Money, the money app that works for you.
Are your investments going nowhere? Here's a tip that always pays big dividends. Invest in yourself, your talent, your smarts, your skills. Maybe it's time to make that investment and start a career in IT or upskill to boost your current career. At My Computer Career, you can bank on us. We'll help you get the right skills and the right certifications to start or advance your IT career. IT keeps growing, so go with the growth at My Computer Career. The right training, the right timing, the right career. Invest in you at mycomputercareer.edu. Start now.
Hi, this is Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled and commercial materials have doubled. And I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. But you know what I can control? How much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Fiveash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. Fiveash Roofing, a proud sponsor of Tiger Athletics and a member of the Tigers home team. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
Fiveash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
The only power source capable of generating 1.21 gigawatts of electricity is a bolt of lightning.
Now, back to Sports 56 Happy Hour on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Here once again, Johnny Radio.
Brian, the NBA...
I thought my mic was off.
No, it's on. Brian, the NBA playoffs aren't the only ones that are going on.
That's right.
I don't even know if I can just move past that way, but I think I have
Well,
to.
can I ask you a question before we get to this to kind of bridge the gap between my ridiculousness and...
You're singing?
Yeah, in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Spencer Strider gives up more than 2 runs in his start?
Him personally or the Braves themselves as a team? Or are you just looking at how many earned runs he gets
Spencer
up?
Strider earned runs over under 1.5. I might go under.
I don't know if I want to take a 1.5. Is it plus money? No, I wouldn't.
Minus
do it.
115.
I wouldn't touch it then.
Interesting.
That would be my advice. How did you guys that bridge our gap at all?
I don't know. I just wanted to ask.
It's a sport that didn't get us anywhere.
Okay.
Braves game starts in 10 minutes though.
NHL playoffs.
And I would imagine that our attention is diverted a bit once that game starts. Just a bit. Generally, that's how it goes for me. But, Brian, the NBA playoffs aren't the only ones that are going on. The Stanley Cup playoffs are in full swing here with some big Game 7s yesterday. Another big one tonight, Rangers and Devils. That's a big game.
Mm-hmm.
But yesterday, 2 big upsets, you could say.
Yeah.
The Bruins lose. I'll talk about this one first. The Bruins lose to the Panthers after being up 3-1. The Bruins, President's Trophy winners, which is the best record in the NHL. The Panthers last year were President Trophy winners. They got exited in the second round pretty handily by the Lightning.
Yeah.
And this year, the Panthers, who retooled everything, fired their coach. Panthers had the best record in the league last year. I believe set a scoring record somehow.
Maybe.
I think they had the most goals in a season in NHL history, if I'm not mistaken. So a scoring record for them. They trade away one of their top point getters on offense. Fire their coach, and the new coach comes in and says, this team last year was not built for the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're going to build now to be ready for the playoffs. And that seems to be what they did, beating the President's Trophy winners, the Bruins. That overtime was unbelievable, too. So the Panthers were up the whole game. The Bruins tied it up at the end of regulation, or Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And they go to overtime, and the Panthers score a remarkable goal that silenced the TD Garden. Did you watch that game yesterday?
I did.
What did you
I watched the end of it. I watched like the last 3 minutes of the third period and then overtime. It was incredible. I mean, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't keep many tabs on the Florida Panthers this year, but they really turned it on at the end of the season, right? Like it was kind of an up and down regular season.
Pretty much consistently at that spot the whole
Really?
way. But people are seeing their rank. They did play a lot better down the stretch of the season. It was really early in the year. They said that they weren't meshing the right way yet, but they got a lot better down the stretch of the season, like you said.
Yeah, and to go up 3-1 as a team that, I had them winning the whole thing. Maybe not winning the whole thing, but definitely getting to the Stanley Cup Finals. I know a lot of other people did. And even though, you talk about the President's Cup curse and, they're not going to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, I thought
President's Trophy.
Whatever, President's Trophy.
Very important distinction.
I kind of thought that they were going to buck those trends and make it all the way.
I agree.
Because a lot of people thought, with the talent they had on that team, that they were a playoff-built team. And, what Florida did was impressive.
Well, you and I...
Come back 3-1. That's crazy.
You and I have hockey teams that we follow, and I would say we watch fairly casually.
Yes.
We don't really know the inner workings of the sport necessarily. But I swear, and you watch all these studio shows too, every former player or coach that talks about this makes such a special point to say winning in the regular season and winning in the playoffs is two completely different ways to play the sport. And I think that could be a reason why. Now, I don't know why this trend of President's Trophy drought has only gone 10 years. Because if you look back further, there's a pretty good line of teams winning the President's Trophy and winning the Cup. I don't know if there was rule changes in that time span or how the sport. I don't know how. I don't know enough about hockey to know how the sport has changed in that regard. But I do think that trend is crazy, and how universally accepted it is how different the brands of hockey are.
Yeah, but I feel like this year, though,
especially when you look at last season Florida Panthers, this season Florida Panthers, playing against the same position they were in last year at the Boston Bruins, I think that paints that picture really well.
For sure. But I also think, like you just talked about those studio shows, I feel like everybody who talked about them and said, well, there's difference between playoff hockey and regular season hockey. There's a big but afterwards, especially going into the playoffs.
But the Bruins can buck that trend.
The Bruins can be that team to make it all the way.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody was shocked by this. You said how silent TD Garden got yesterday.
Oh, man.
Fans crying in the stands. It was insane.
And literally all the Panthers fans were sporadic. So it would be like two guys together, both on their phones, texting everyone back home, oh, my God, did you see that? Oh, my God, oh, my God. Something like that. So the Panthers play the Maple Leafs in the next round. The Leafs who beat the Lightning, who were a wagon in their own right.
That was their first series win since like a while. I don't know the exact.
And they haven't won a cup since the 60s, I think. Is that right?
60s, that's right.
But there was another big one yesterday, too. I don't think as much so. People said the Panthers was really something. They were talking about how good the Panthers were in the series, especially those last three games to come back down 3-1 and win that series. A little bit different rhetoric in the Kraken and Avalanche situation. The Avalanche are reigning champions. Bryant, for those not watching, is wearing his Kraken gear today. He's got his Kraken jersey on and a Kraken hat. He's very excited. But a lot of the rhetoric around the Kraken win was luck-based.
Yeah.
You watched the whole series.
I sure did.
But again, take what we're talking about hockey with a grain of salt. But you at least watched the series. What do you think about people saying it was pretty lucky?
I mean, I would agree. There were a lot of injuries. A lot of people want to point out the injuries that Colorado had. They were without their captain. They were without one of their best players. But so the Kraken were also without two of their big players. But I do think it was a lot of luck. The goalie, Grubauer, used to play for Colorado, so it felt like he had a chip on his shoulder. But one thing I'll say, I had no expectations going into this series as a fan of the Kraken. I just wanted them to...
First series.
I just wanted them to have fun and play well. They went out, scored the first goal in all 7 games, which is incredible. And so I think they could get swept in this next round against Dallas, and I would call it an extremely successful playoff for the Kraken.
Wow.
And a lot that you
so
can
you
build
set
on
the
to
arbitrary line already.
Yeah.
It's already a success.
Already a success.
Would it have been a failure if they lost? No, you said no expectations.
There was no expectations.
Making the playoffs was a success
That's
itself. So that's where we put the arbitrary line there. That's interesting. Do you think they have a good chance against the Stars or not?
I'm gonna say they get swept again because I said we're gonna get swept in the first round and they won it. So I'll just keep with that trend.
And it worked already.
Sure
it's
did.
Interesting to see. Stars really turned it on here.
Yeah, they're a good team. And
very similar record-wise between the Kraken and
Stars.
But
I don't think the Kraken beat them once this year. Dallas really handled them all season.
Stars has some skill players too.
Sure do. Big guys up.
What's Robertson's first name?
Jason.
Jason.
Yeah,
that's right.
Good player.
Asian
big player
fella.
too. And he's big.
Big boy.
I mean, tall,
I remember
big
seeing
guy.
him at All-Star Weekend.
The chip and putt.
And he was noticeably way bigger than everybody else he was playing against. So that's where it stands right now. And like we said, tonight, Rangers and
Big
Devils. One. Devils are favored in this game, but the Rangers have a lot of star
Maybe take
power.
the Rangers.
This will be a crazy game. Yeah, no, I've already doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down in every way possible on this series as the prices change. So we'll see what happens there tonight. But the other playoffs we talked about earlier, we got to talk about all those series. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs right after this.
Temperatures are on the rise. Make sure you beat the heat this summer by scheduling your $69 air conditioning tune-up now with Conway Services. An annual AC tune-up can save you money and help prevent costly breakdowns during the hottest months of the year. Visit conwayservices.com for details, terms, and conditions. License number 64210, 64365 EAS, MS 19668.
Call 384-3511. Conway Services. Call Conway today.
It's Wrangler season out there. Warmer days, cooler nights. Open roads, endless horizons. And you need to be ready in jeans made for the unpredictable. Wrangler, for the ride of life. Shop our newest styles today at Wrangler.com.
Psst, hey, Mark, remember, getting help from Progressive is so easy. You can use the mobile app, chat with us online, or call us.
And you pick now to tell me.
I couldn't miss Little Grace's ballet recital. Oh, thanks for inviting me, by the way.
Did I?
Because you know I'm always here for you.
Yeah. I can use the mobile app if I need help. Sorry, you're in my wife's seat, though?
Oh, yeah, I gotta go anyway. Tell Grace she nailed her chassé.
Get the help you need from Progressive with our mobile app, online chat, or over the phone. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers.
Nestled in the heart of East Memphis, located corner of Park and Cherry, is a beautiful residential neighborhood. I'm here at Town Village Audubon Park interviewing a new resident, Carolyn. Share with us why you chose Town Village.
Well, if your parents or special friends need to make that big move, let me share with you my experience. It was tough for me to leave home, but then I discovered Town Village. I would like to highly recommend Town Village to you and your loved ones. After looking at all the amenities and meeting all the people and staff, I was hooked. From restaurant, bistro, 3 meals per day, housekeeping, transportation, security, health care, physical therapy, exercise room, and even a heated pool and spa. Come see us and make your new home at Town Village.
Visit us and call Daniel at Town Village Audubon Park at 901-374-7342. There's no place like home, Town Village.
We are Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis, Flynn Broadcasting Stations.
But you gotta be willing to take the hit and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Now, back to Sports 56 Happy Hour on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Tito's Vodka. Here once again, Johnny Radio.
I just got a notification from ESPN.
Okay.
Sometimes they post stories, and I don't know how it notifies you. Maybe if it's like a team that you have alerts for is featured in the story, they give you that stuff. I just got first half team grades from ESPN+.
See where they put the what grade they gave the Cardinals?
But here's the thing. It's not the first half.
I can read it to you.
The first half is still going on.
The first month grades.
First month grades. First half grades. What, first 2 months
first
season?
Quarter.
We're doing a 60-day sample size here like the bubble season? No,
see what they give the Cardinals?
That being said, though, I got my MLB tiers later. No, what do they give them?
A D.
Okay. Well, we'll see if I agree or not.
They considered an F grade.
My tiers are a little different than the A, B, C,
not
D,
just
F
A, B, C,
scale.
D, yeah, but
no E, though. A, B, C, D, F scale.
Nobody ever has an E.
I do a tier system. So we got MLB tiers as of May 1st.
I like that. See, yours is much more accurate.
It's right.
Because you're right.
These are just May
the
1st
data.
tier. May 1st tiers.
We're here.
I can't do any more than May 1st.
Right.
I'm not trying to say first half because that's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Just May 1st tier.
I like it.
We'll do that later. Right now, we have to talk about the NBA playoffs, and I want to talk a little bit more about the Grizzlies. The biggest storyline for the Grizzlies this offseason is, I would say, the free agency of Dylan Brooks. And I think Kleiman spoke to that yesterday.
Well, kind of, but not really.
He said, what was the quote that they attributed to the Dylan Brooks conversation? It was that we have off-season something as a priority. I forget what it was.
Well, what I saw, they asked about Dylan Brooks, and he said, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Dylan at a later date or something like that.
I'll just take your word for it. I thought I saw something else.
You could be right. I didn't look too closely at it.
Or maybe it was someone was attributing a quote that wasn't about Dylan Brooks or was assumed to be about Dylan Brooks to him, and maybe it wasn't actually.
That could be right, yeah.
It could be that too. But his off-season is coming up. I would say pretty much the fan base is probably in unison.
Yes.
Although I don't think it's I say that, and I don't know, maybe I'm building a straw man when I say that, because the people that I interact with, I don't think they certainly are critical of Dylan in certain respects, but I don't think it's as loud as what you might see on Twitter, which also is a vessel for when people are frustrated, they'll post on there. So it probably tends to be more aggressive and more hateful about him than reality would be. And it's based on what we talk about on the radio, which we have to fill this time with something.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't really sound good to talk about the nuances of everything. It sounds a lot better to say this guy stinks, get him the hell out of here, or to defend him vociferously.
Also gets people fired up.
It does. It does. And you have to have a scapegoat for something.
Sure.
And you have to have narratives, too.
Sure.
Because we can't just look at it and give excuses like Steven Adams and Brandon Clark are hurt. You have to have narratives surrounding these things. And right or wrong, these narratives get built, and that's the way it goes. So I think a big question this offseason is for Dylan Brooks, the signing of him. But I personally I think that the reality of what the front office is dealing with and the fan base and media reality, I don't think you could find two realities that are further apart. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, I completely agree. I think a lot of it has to – it's kind of the same thing with – but even more amplified to like what the DeAnthony Melton was last year, where it's like they're taking the right now, what just happened.
But clearly the fan base and the front office in that regard were closer in realities than –
Right. But – I think, and you're right about that, but I think a lot of the fans, I guess I should say, are just looking at what just happened, and that's fueling a lot. Because there's always been kind of this back and forth, like one side likes Dylan, the other side doesn't. But I feel like now, after the playoffs, it's probably more like 80-20 of like fans are, I'm done with Dylan, we need to move on from Dylan. And then the 20% are like, oh, well, let's keep this guy.
I looked today, he shot 45% from two in the playoffs. So really, all of his poor shooting percentage was from the three-point line.
Well,
which was actually a higher percentage, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It was a higher percentage from two than both Desmond Bane and John Morant shot. But that could be incorrect. I'll have to look that up later.
Well, and another thing that I want to point to, because a lot of people want to talk about how bad offensively he is and how he shoots the ball too much, right?
I've heard some people say he wasn't good on defense in this series either, which I don't agree with. I think there's different nuances as to why he was taken off of LeBron James. Anyway, go ahead.
But I think but isn't that kind of the two things that you've heard a lot of? Hasn't been good offensively.
They pulled him off LeBron.
Well, yes, but he's not good offensively. The two most common things about Dylan is he's not good. He doesn't shoot the ball well, and he shoots too much,
which is also way too generic. But
way too generic.
Yeah, but that's what it is.
This year, he shot the ball less than he has both regular season and playoffs than he has the last 3 years. So he's not shooting the ball as much, and he averaged 14 points a game. What more do you want?
And in games where he was ball dominant more were his best offensive games, I thought, which speaks to what he said yesterday that I think could be seen as a bit defensive or aggressive towards the media or his coaching staff, but I don't think he meant it as such. But now I'm interpreting in a way that's no different than how other people are interpreting things he said negatively.
Sure.
So I want to keep kind of my bias out of it. But what he said yesterday is, I don't believe that I was utilized on offense correctly. And I would agree with that, because he is in a situation where we have an issue right now because they are literally leaving him open. He is being instructed to shoot when he is open.
Yes.
Because totally believe, and I think this is the truth, it is more detrimental to the offense if he ceases shooting than if he goes 1 of 10 from 3 and shoots every time he's open.
I agree.
You have to shoot.
Especially if they're leaving you open.
You have to shoot. You have to.
Because with how much pressure teams are going to put on like Desmond Bane and Ja Morant, if you have Dylan Brooks open and to take a shot, you can't just say stop shooting the ball and give it up to somebody.
You have to keep shooting. So I agree with that. Even though people moan and groan every time he shoots the ball, he has to keep shooting. For one thing. What was the other factor that you mentioned? You mentioned shooting the ball too much.
Shooting the ball and
threes.
Yeah,
and
threes.
he said, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
And he said, it's a lot of moving parts today. But he said in his postgame, because I don't believe I was utilized correctly, I'm not a 3-and-D player, and I would agree with that. Now, I don't think you necessarily want to take the ball out of Ja Morant's hands, and I agree. A lot of times they initiated action with Dylan Brooks, which I think is how they've run their best offense, is when Dylan Brooks has the first action and makes them guard that, and either it's a set play to Jaren sometimes, or maybe it's a late clock opportunity for Ja, which is what all of them are, but Bane gets the first action. I'm not sure how you fit Dylan into that.
Right.
At this point in the playoffs, there might just not be enough pieces to go around. It could be an argument for why he would be a really good sixth-man candidate on a team, because it allows him to be more ball dominant and shoots the shots that he has shown proficiency in.
Sure.
Getting to elbows, pull-up jumpers. I even think finishing around the rim, floaters with a foot in the paint. I think all these are ways that I've seen Dylan Brooks score off the dribble even in mid-range. It's really just the set three-point shot that he struggles with.
Yep.
And so I don't necessarily disagree with him when he says that I wasn't put in the best position to score those things. But I think all of that has to be put aside when you're talking about whether or not you re-sign him. It's the defensive aspect of it all. The Mavericks just missed the playoffs selling all of the... Now, Maxi Kleber was hurt the whole year. They have no interior presence at all on the defensive end or on the rebounding side of the floor. But they just missed the playoffs, which I think they still could have made the playoffs without that interior presence, because they made the Western Conference Finals with only Maxi Kleber as an interior presence last year in post defense. But they lost all but Tim Hardaway in terms of perimeter defense, and they missed the playoffs because of it. So I think you can directly point to Dylan Brooks' vital role on the team in terms of his perimeter defense, especially when you already have Jaren patrolling the paint to block shots, which is a great role for him to do. You have to have Steven Adams on the floor to do it, but you saw how good the Grizzlies were doing that this year. And quite frankly, you already have a player in Ja Morant that you have to hide defensively on the perimeter and otherwise. Dylan Brooks' role on this team is vital to their success. It's not to say they won't win games next year. Like, remember this year when, before the season, there was a big Grizzlies fan base argument about the role of DeAnthony Melton. Do we need DeAnthony Melton or do we not need DeAnthony Melton? And then the Grizzlies are winning games, and people are like, oh, that DeAnthony Melton group is really quiet now, aren't they? No one wants DeAnthony Melton anymore. So it's not to say if Dylan Brooks leaves next year that they won't win games and won't make the playoffs, and people won't say, I told you we didn't need Dylan Brooks. But I think you're going to miss him when it comes to nut-cutting time in the playoffs and stuff like that.
For sure.
You need that perimeter defense. And it might not have served you well in this Lakers series without your starting and backup center, but I think that's you cannot judge because Dylan Brooks missing those threes is also totally different if Steven Adams is on the court.
Oh, yeah.
He was the best offensive rebounder in the league when he got hurt. And the Grizzlies were the best offensive rebounding team in the league when he got hurt. It also hurt Ja's shooting percentage, too, where he's missing shots and they're not getting second opportunities, where Ja might get a second shot or someone else gets a better open shot, too. So I think it would be very rash to judge the performance of any individual in this playoffs and make a decision with his future on the team based on that. Well, is that fair or is that not fair?
I think it's very fair. And also, when you look, you kind of pointed out, Ja's not a good defender, really. And you don't have a lot of great defenders on this roster, but you have Dylan Brooks, and I think
an argument people make is Desmond Bane can step up in that role too, but it helps to have two of them.
It helps to have two, definitely. Well, and there
what
was
if you play the Celtics in the finals? What if you play the Warriors again?
Exactly. Well, and I remember you sent me a stat because we do big number of the day in the afternoon every day. And you sent me one that was in the NBA. Players guarding 2022-2023 All-Stars this year, I forgot who was number. Jaden McDaniels was number 1, I think.
No, he was 3.
He was 3.
Mikal Bridges was 1.
Mikal Bridges was 1.
Dylan Brooks
and Dylan
was 2.
Brooks was 2. I don't think people pay attention enough to like when you're playing the Warriors or when you're playing the Lakers or when you're playing these teams that have these all-star caliber guards. You can say, hey, Dylan, go get Clay. Hey, Dylan, go get this guy. Hey, Dylan, go get this guy.
And his versatility at guarding multiple positions that way. There was a stretch this year, and I tried to make mention of it as often as I could to just not necessarily ingrain it in the people that are listening, because people might not care what I say.
Right.
But so other people that work here could echo those sentiments and say the same thing. One game he's guarding Pascal Siakam. The next he's guarding LeBron.
Yeah.
The next he's guarding Zion Williamson. They play the Warriors, he goes to guard Steph. They play the Kings, he's guarding De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
The versatility to guard all those positions.
Incredible.
Maybe Desmond Bane could do it too. But I don't think, and I don't want this to make a Grizzlies construct conversation necessarily. We have to talk about other series in these playoffs. I don't think you can win a championship or even compete for one if you have 2 guys that aren't guarding the basketball well on one team. You can hide one guy, you can't hide 2. I've never seen it done. For a while, we had never even seen someone hide one and win an NBA championship. And now we're starting to see it more common. You can hide 1 defender. I don't think you can hide 2 and compete for a championship. It just doesn't work. So if you're going to try and do that and prove me wrong that it can work, you damn sure need 2 excellent perimeter defenders that can guard multiple positions. And I would say Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane are excellent candidates for that too. And then you have Steven Adams, who is bigger than pretty much every center he's going to go up with, so he can bang with anybody and allows Jaren to be himself and do the things that allowed him to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think the construct of this team is just, at least the starting group, I think it's made up really well. I think Taylor Jenkins utilizes everybody's strengths really well. I would reload. Even though I'm saying that I don't think you can win, I don't think they're going to sell Jaren, and I certainly don't think they're going to sell Ja. So if we have no say on those things, I would rebuild exactly how you have it. Because I think that's your best shot. I really do think it's your best shot. But we'll see what happens this offseason. Obviously, a lot of people might not agree with that sentiment at all. But there's other series going on, Brian. And one of them is the Warriors playing the Lakers.
Game 1 tonight, right?
No.
No, because they just finished. Yes, it's got to be tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yesterday when the Warriors played the Kings, Stephen Curry gave them 50 points.
Unbelievable.
But I did not think that was the biggest storyline of that game. It was unbelievable. What he was doing was incredible.
Yeah.
You saw why he's so difficult to guard. You saw why the Warriors win so many closeout games because they can play. What happened?
Braves 3-run shot.
Wow, 3-0 first inning?
Top of the first, 3-0.
Love to
Sean
see that
Murphy.
kind of thing. Oh, wow, Sean Murphy's been great.
He has.
But I thought the biggest thing...
7th home run of the season, 19th RBI. Wow.
I thought the biggest key in that series was that it is clear to me, as good as the Kings are, Sabonis is not a 5 in the league. And too many people are going to view that series and what Sabonis did and say, that guy's not good enough. But he's a 4.
Yeah.
If
he's playing out of position.
He has to bang with Looney, and Looney dominated him on the glass, especially yesterday. Sabonis is incredible. And he's best served just being allowed to play his game. But he spent way too many of both ends of the floor facilitating for everybody else to get De'Aaron Fox, who was great, going, or Malik Monk going, or get Kevin Werder an opportunity on a jump shot. And then spent way too much time expending way too much energy on the defensive end, having to bang with Kevon Looney, grab rebounds, guard through. Kevon Looney involved in every ball screen with Steph Curry out there. Too much to ask for him.
It really was.
I thought that was a role that was not what he need. They need a banger for a 5 down there.
Yeah,
it shows how difficult that can be.
Oh yeah,
and it's different. I think Sabonis is, how big is Sabonis? 6'10", 11?
Something like that.
He's bigger than I give him credit for, isn't he?
I don't know.
Sabonis is. I didn't find it as fast as I thought I would. Oh, he's 7'1".
Jeez,
but
he don't look 7'1".
But he's not. I think he falls into that same size demographic as like a Porzingis might or something like that, where it's not the height we're looking at, but he's not as big and strong as Kevon Looney.
Yeah.
And down there to bang for those boards. Robert Williams is only 6'10". Mitchell Robinson, I don't think, is that big. Bam Adebayo isn't that big.
No.
Those are guys that bang down low.
They're big guys. Yeah.
And Sabonis might be better served while being 7'1". Maybe playing a different role. Maybe they don't think he can guard for us. I have no idea. But I thought that was that.
I agree.
They exposed that yesterday.
Especially rebounding, for sure.
So now they play the Lakers. Do you think Looney will be a factor in banging with Anthony Davis, like we just talked about was a deficiency the Grizzlies had? Or do they go small and match up with Draymond Green? They can do both things.
They could do both. I think probably Draymond would probably be your best bet, though.
You think so?
I think so.
I think I'd go back and forth on that. The way Looney played yesterday, if he plays like that again, that would
and
be.
He had a similar game. What was it? Game 3 when old boy was out.
20 rebounds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
when Draymond was out.
Draymond was out. Yeah.
Yeah, Draymond was
So,
out. And he had 21 yesterday. It was unbelievable.
So I think you go back and forth with it, and I think that could give them some good mix and match and kind of switch it up and keep the Lakers on their toes.
But I don't think we should underplay what the Kings did, how good they are.
No, not at all.
De'Aaron Fox is obviously unbelievable, a centerpiece of that team. And, I think it's a shame. I'm definitely building the straw man when I say this, but I think it's a shame. A little presumptuous of me. I think people are really going to judge Sabonis.
But Sabonis was fantastic this year.
Yeah, all year.
All year.
Didn't shoot the ball well. But again, he was being asked to do so many things outside of his comfort zone that I think it detracted from what he's able to do on offense, too. But now I'm making excuses for guys, and I really should just call them failures. They lost to a lower-seeded team. The other series that kicked off yesterday, now I'm talking like you.
Wow.
The other series that tipped off yesterday because it's basketball was the Heat and the Knicks. And another factor in terms of size was this game. Because the Knicks were dominating at halftime. The score was closer than dominating, but they dominated inside. 40 points in the paint by the Knicks in the first half, only 20 for the Heat. Unbelievable job by them, whereas they limited the Knicks to only 20 points in the paint in the second half. That's what turned the tide of the game. The second half adjustments that the Heat made, I thought, changed the tide of the game, and Jimmy Butler has now scored 25 in every game in the playoffs this year.
He's incredible.
Unbelievable job.
I mean, the Heat, 31 points, set the tone in the third quarter, come out hot, and kind of flip that game early.
And Mitchell Robinson was dominating the paint in the first half, not necessarily scoring, but just physically a presence in there.
Right.
And
I like Mitchell Robinson.
I love him.
Yeah.
But they completely turned the tide, and very clearly a halftime adjustment in order to fix that, because only 20 points in the second half for the Knicks in the paint, 40 in the first half. People are calling Jimmy Butler him. Bryant.
Himmy Butler.
Yeah. And that's one of these new age things. For those of you who aren't hip like Bryant and I are, it's one of these new age things. It's calling him that guy.
Yeah.
He's him.
He's him.
How many hims can there be in the NBA?
Not a lot.
10? There could be more than goats, because goats.
Goats like one.
Goat should be one.
Yeah. Hymns.
There could be there could be 10 or 12 hymns.
Can you get double-digit hymns?
And then if you just look at society of hymns, there could be 10 or 12 hymns.
That's true.
In every walk of life
That's
across.
a good point,
So there's really no limit to who could be him. Himmy Butler's a good one.
Himmy Butler. He is him.
Yeah, but a really good game yesterday. I talked about the second. I have 2 bullet points here. The first one is how many hymns can there be? And the second one was the 40 first half points in the paint for the Knicks. So I was going to my second bullet point here.
Should already talked about it. You got so excited about it.
I talked about it off the rip there.
Yeah.
So the Heat have turned this tide. Did you pick the Heat or the Knicks to win this series? Or did you not
I
pick?
picked the Knicks because both you and Brett picked
on Sports Time.
On Sports Time. Y'all both picked the Heat, and I was the lone wolf saying the Knicks.
Do you think the Knicks can still win the series, or do you like the Heat now that they've taken home court?
No, I think the Knicks can still win this series, but I'll be honest, I've been extremely impressed with what the Heat have done these first 2 series against both Milwaukee and this first game against the Knicks, because, I mean, with Milwaukee, you kind of had that built-in excuse or reason, I guess you could say, with Giannis being out.
Hurt.
But even when Giannis came back and probably wasn't 100%.
Big factor.
Yeah, and so I think still being able to win that series like you did was very impressive from the Heat. And now being able, like you said, to make those second half adjustments in this one and steal a game 1. I mean, that's huge for them. I mean, we always talk about if you can steal one on the road, especially to start this series.
You take home court advantage.
That's right. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It could go either way. The Heat have really been capitalizing on turnovers really well, especially in making threes in those situations. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, not so much last game Max Strus, but both of those guys have stepped up from 3. Caleb Martin's taken a big step.
Didn't Max Strus kind of struggle from shooting the 3 in the first series?
No, I thought he shot the ball really well in the
Or maybe it was
series.
Gabe Vincent. One of them.
Gabe Vincent
I
only
thought.
had like one really good game, I
yeah.
believe, in the first
Then
series.
It was Gabe Vincent.
Could have it backwards though, but I'm pretty sure I was right. And then Kyle Lowry coming off the bench now has really taken a big step. He had 20 yesterday. He was unbelievable off the bench. So in that regard, man.
I will say though, these are
problem.
probably the two teams that impressed me the most in the first round
in the East. Mm-hmm. Why not the Celtics? Just because it was too easy of a test for them?
Well, I just mean in terms of like, I didn't think the Heat would beat Milwaukee at all. And we already talked about there was the injury, all that, but I was impressed with what they did. And then I thought the Knicks and the Knicks and the Cavs was going to be an extremely competitive series, and it just wasn't. So that's why those two impressed me. And I think the Celtics, I mean, they handled their business,
which might go to show. This is a case in point that I think you could find themes of throughout all these series across the league. How vital it is to have a big banging five.
Yeah.
Mitchell Robinson is not as big and lanky as Evan Mobley or Jared Allen, and took it to them physically in the first series, and took it to the Heat physically in the first half until the Heat made that adjustment. And I think if you can neutralize that advantage, as good as Jalen Brunson is, as good as R.J. Barrett was yesterday, if you can neutralize the physical advantage at the five, I think the Heat can win this series. And if they can continue what they did yesterday in the second half, they got a pretty good case.
Yeah.
One series kicking off tonight. It's the Sixers and the
Celtics.
Celtics?
Yeah, Celtics.
Celtics?
I think so.
Not believer in the Sixers? Even with DeAnthony Melton? Celtics are too good,
Maybe it's
man.
not that I'm not a believer in them. I just think maybe the Celtics are better.
Too good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see what happens in that regard. I think the Sixers might give it a better run than people give them credit for.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
What do you think about Denver and
and Denver dominated. Great point. That's the one I forgot.
I mean, that blew me away.
Dominated the first game in that series. I think Suns had players that played well, but the discrepancy of the score was a domination from the Nuggets in Game 1 of that. The Nuggets, you just said you thought the Heat were most impressive.
Yeah.
The Nuggets impressed me the most in round one in the West, so much so that they made me doubt how much I like the Warriors.
And I think a lot of that might be like how they ended the season. The last like 4 or 5 games of the season wasn't their best games, but they already had that number 1 seed locked up. And then just the fact that you had the play-in game, so you didn't know who they were going to play, so there wasn't as much talk around the team as like some of these other series that were already set.
Could be because it's a 1-8 like that, but I think a lot of national pundits also dismissed the Nuggets due to previous seasons where they were playing with injured rosters.
Yeah.
Well, because it's always, what's the thing you hear what's the most like general statement when people talk about the NBA? I'll just give it to you because that's too broad a question.
I was about to say.
It's a star-driven league.
Oh,
it's all about the stars. You have to have a 1, and you got to have your number 2. This guy, he's not a number 1. He could be a number 2 on a team.
Right.
This guy could be a number 4. He could maybe be a number 3. But it's a star-driven league. It's all about the stars. So people see Jokic. He hasn't won enough playoff series to this point, so the Nuggets aren't going to do anything in the playoffs. Right. We've already talked about it earlier in the show. The injury factor. This is the first time they've been healthy, and they dominated that first-round series. So that could be a reason why it's not getting enough talk and mention either. But should be a lot of fun series, and then the Warriors and the Lakers too, other one in the West. Well, I think we got a pretty good rundown of the NBA at this point. The Grizzlies off season
starts now,
and the other series in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. NBA discourse is going to go way down in this market, though. Starting today, right?
Yeah.
It's a damn shame.
It is a shame.
Great playoffs. When we come back, though, we're going to give our MLB tiers next.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Hi, this is Lauren Choate with Choate's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Plumbing. Did you know Willis Carrier invented the modern air conditioning system in 1902? Since then, a lot has changed, but one thing that hasn't is being comfortable in your home. Choate's prides itself in creating the most comfort possible with each one of our customers' HVAC systems we install. We believe the best system on the market today is the Carrier Infinity System. It has the ability to save up to 50% or more on your utilities compared to your existing HVAC system and is tailored to enhance your comfort with its state-of-the-art green speed technology. Right now, Carrier is offering up to 72 months, no interest financing, or rebates of up to $1,650 on a new Carrier Infinity system. Don't miss this limited time offer to have a more comfortable home. Give us a call today at 347-8086 or visit us at ChotesHVAC.com for more information. Turn to the experts with Choates. And remember, let our family serve your family.
Spring has sprung, and that means a whole new season of doing with Spring Black Friday at the Home Depot. And by doing, we mean seeding and planting and growing. Start your spring right with savings on annuals, houseplants, and more. Shop 11-inch Vigorous Select Annual hanging baskets now on special buy for $12.88. April 27th to May 1st. Do your spring at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Product varies by store.
I had a nighttime routine for my frequent heartburn. I would drink milk, I would sleep upright with more pillows, but that painful burning stayed. So I made Prilosec OTC part of my morning routine. With just one pill each morning, Prilosec OTC prevents excess acid production, blocking heartburn day and night. Now I have a new nighttime routine. I call it sleeping.
One pill a day, 24 hours, zero heartburn. With Prilosec OTC. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
Hi, this is Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled, and commercial materials have doubled. And I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. But you know what I can control? How much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Fiveash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. Fiveash Roofing, a proud sponsor of Tiger Athletics and a member of the Tigers home team. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofer.com. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofer.com.
Fiveash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
Visit Frontier Western Store today for new shirts and boots. Frontier is your top Carhartt store in the Mid-South. There's thousands of in-stock shirts and jeans. They have the classic K87 pocket tee in every color they make, including new ones just released. Available small to 4X. Want new jeans? Frontier has you covered with super tough work denim by Carhartt. And you've got to check out their selection of Ariat jeans for men, women, and children. You'll love how easy it is to find the size and style you need. Have you seen Frontier's remodeled world-famous boot showroom? It continues to expand. New styles by Ariat just arrived, plus plenty of in-stock proven classics too. Whether you need work or dress boots, trust that Frontier's the place to come. See thousands of pairs of Ariat boots and thousands more by Dan Post, Corral, Durango, Rocky, Twisted X, and others. And Frontier's pricing is lower than online and chain stores, so you know just the local shop to visit. Frontier Western Store, 5880 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, and on the web at frontierwesternstore.com. Locally owned and operated since 1967.
4.9-liter V8, 0 to 60, and I'm about to find out.
Now, back to Sports 56 Happy Hour on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Tito's Vodka. Here once again, Johnny Radio.
First half in MLB.
Well, something like that.
First month, at least.
Right.
And Bryant's.
I got bad news for you.
The
Mets tacked on a run.
Wow.
3-1.
3-1.
With first and third, one out. Strider struggling to start the game.
I was going to take a Yurfee in that game, but I felt
would have been
like,
a hell of a bet.
I felt like I was just betting on the Braves to score because I was confident in Strider, you see, and I didn't like the idea of taking a Yurfee when I'm just counting on one of the two teams to score.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it.
Well,
but I didn't take Nerfy either, so we didn't lose anything, but we didn't gain
win
anything.
Right.
Scared money don't make money.
That's
though,
right.
Brian. So we're 1 month into the year in Major League Baseball. And I saw today, just happenstance, ESPN posted their first half grades. Well, I actually came in today before I even saw that. And I went to this website, Brian. Have you ever...
Thought you being proactive.
Have you ever heard of this website? It's very popular.
Very popular.
Very popular in the Twitch sphere and even the Twitter sphere. Tiermaker.com.
So I've got a question, because I've seen this before. What do you do? Do you have to import all the pictures to go on there?
Not necessarily. They have tier lists that are already there that are for your pleasure. You can just click one and do it. Or you can make your own. And I decided today to make my own with my own tiers here. There's 10 tiers of teams.
So did you have to import all these or the logos, or are the logos already on the website?
Yeah, I put the logos in there.
I see.
I had to save all of them and then put it. It's all a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Hey, and I'll tweet this picture too,
please,
so that people can follow along if they'd like to. I don't know if anyone actually cares, but nonetheless, I'm going to do this here. And so I have my 10 tiers of teams here. There's no limit to how many teams can be in each tier, but there's 10 tiers. And I'm going to go top to bottom here. So we're going to start at the top tier and go all the way down to the bottom tier. So you're familiar with how the tiers work?
Correct.
Have I described it well?
I think
so. Do you
so.
think people know what tier lists are?
The top tier is the best tier, and as you go down, the tiers become worse until you get to the bottom, which is usually the worst tier.
Right, and there's no. It doesn't have. It's not like every tier has to have the same amount.
Right. So it's
you
just
go up
if they
and down.
fit the category, they fit the category.
And this is just for May 1st.
Right.
Right. It could.
Things can change.
I mean, I could watch
ever
games,
evolving tiers.
I could watch games today, and literally, it could all change tomorrow. So very fluid, the tier list here. But here's my tier list for May 30th, and I have a little bit of fanfare to play, but I'm not going to play it after each team I name. I'm going to name the teams, Brian. I'm going to name the tier. I'm going to name the teams in the tier, and I'm going to give a little bit of discourse about the teams. Feel free to engage.
Jump right in.
If you agree, I don't want to hear if you disagree.
Okay.
I want
if
all
agree.
agreements
Gotcha.
here.
Only
I want you to
positive
help
encouragement.
support me putting these teams in this
more
tier.
tiers, because if I encourage you positive, then more tiers to come.
That's right, and it might influence the way I talk about it in the future.
Right.
Here we go. Let's start with the top tier, Bryant. The top tier is called, drum roll, teams I know that are good. 2 teams in this tier, the Atlanta Braves, Bryant, and the Tampa Bay Rays.
I like it.
Very self-explanatory
Very.
there. The 2 teams with the longest winning streaks this season, the Rays have been dominant, even in a really good AL East, and the Braves have been dominant in a really good NL East. You with me so far?
I'm completely with you, 100%.
Acuna MVP candidate?
Nah, sure could be.
He also has 13 stolen bags, too. Big bases. Stealing bags might be a factor in this list here. Next is the second tier, Bryant. It's teams that might be good. So I don't want to say they're good yet, but I'm not saying they're bad. They're showing me some stuff, and I think they might be good. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Teams that might be good. This is a robust group here. The Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm going to do it after each team. I said I wasn't going to do it. The Pittsburgh Pirates. The Chicago Cubs. The Miami Marlins. The Arizona Diamondbacks. The Baltimore Orioles. The Minnesota Twins. And the Texas Rangers. A lot of teams that might be good. What sticks out for you there, Brian?
The Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, we've seen them jump off the page this month.
Leading the NL Central.
They did it for 1 month. I need to see them do it again.
What about the Cubs? Just got swept by the Marlins, 2 teams that might be good.
I'll be honest. Yeah, I mean...
They might
be good.
See, the Marlins,
they've shown things.
They got swept by the Braves, but the Braves are a team I know is good.
We know they're good.
And I was kind of like, well, the Cubs might be good.
They might be.
And then they got swept by the Marlins.
But they still might
But
be
the
good.
Marlins also might be good. So there's a whole lot of... Exactly. So how could I move one of those teams down in that situation?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree.
I got to see more from those 2 teams.
Got to do it again.
What do you think about the NL West leading Diamondbacks, Brian?
I like that. I mean, I love that. First off, we always talk about their outfield. Love their outfield. But, it's the Diamondbacks. Like, that's what I've noticed about, especially, maybe not the Miami Marlins, but, like, the Pirates, the Cubs, and the Diamondbacks. It's going to be way harder to sell me on this team is good because they haven't been good for so long.
Right.
So you've got to show me. It can't just be 1 month of showing me and me put you in the good category.
Right.
You got to show me over a span of time.
No, that's true. Being good in the past is absolutely a factor in what tier you go into. More on that in a bit. What about the 3 AL teams? Baltimore, Twins, Rangers. Any notes on those?
Yeah.
Twins, the last undefeated AL team, but besides the Rays, that is. But one of the last undefeated
Twins
teams.
might be the closest team to I know they're good.
more than the Orioles.
Yeah.
Really?
Because the Orioles is kind of in that same factor. A lot of young talent that we know are good.
Well,
Adley Rushman.
I got to see more.
You got to see more because they haven't been good in the past. Gunnar Henderson. But it's the same thing with like the Pirates and the Cubs. You got to show me over a longer span of time.
And a lot of question marks in that in the starting rotation for the Orioles too, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. 8 of their last 10 though the Orioles have rattled off, so they're doing
Texas
well.
Rangers though they've played really well.
The good rotation too.
Yeah.
Man. I want to see a little more
And
from
then
the Rangers.
DeGrom just went on the 15-day IL. Is that a factor in your list
It's only
making?
with 3 starts
That's true.
max, right? So there you go. Teams next tier. So that's the second tier. Third tier. Teams that have something there. There's something going on there for sure.
We just don't know what it is.
There's something there. I'm not willing to say they might be good yet, but they've got something there. I want to see more, though. You ready?
Yeah.
4 teams in this category. The Toronto Blue Jays, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Houston Astros, and the New York Mets. Oh, one more team. I'm sorry, 5 teams. One's very dark there. And the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the first team I want to talk about here is the Milwaukee Brewers. You might say, the Cubs are below the Brewers in the standings. How can they be a team that might be good and the Brewers have something there? Well, it's because the Brewers have a lot more question marks than me. They've been good in the past. I probably would have said they would be the favorite to win the NL Central going into this year. And they've been a little bit lower than that, a little bit more, but they've got something there.
They do.
Yelich is playing his best ball in a few years. They got Jesse Winker on the
Winker
roster.
looks like
who's
maybe a comeback season.
looking good.
Yeah.
So there's something there, right?
Well, William Contreras in the backstop
new
has
addition.
been,
That's right.
He's been fantastic
He
since
has
they've
been.
gotten him. But like Willie Adames hasn't been as good in years this year as he's been in years past. So
Right.
there's something, some really good, some not so great.
See, the Blue Jays I have to put in here because the AL East is just so good.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
they got something there, but you got to do a lot
be
more.
super good to be a good team in that division.
The
But they rang off before yesterday's loss. They had like 7 wins in a row, 6 wins in a row,
That's
something
right.
like that.
The Dodgers and the Mets kind of in the same category. Obviously, really good talent. I got to see more, though. The
Mets
Dodgers behind the
almost-
D-backs.
Yeah, but the Mets almost, it's like fool me once.
And their pitch, I'm not sold on the Mets pitching.
Yeah.
So they got something.
They got something.
But I want to see a little bit more there. And then the other one I want to talk about is the reigning champs, the Houston Astros. Now, look, I'm a big Astros guy.
Sure.
Okay? Great team. I don't hold them in the same regard as other people do with losing. But I'll tell you what. They got the same record as the Angels. And I'm not going to sit here and say they might be good. You got the same record as the Angels. They got something there.
Something there.
But I got to wait and see. Sneaky good teams. So to me, there might be teams lower on the tiers that are better than sneaky good teams. But being sneaky good is super valuable because everybody undervalues you. And here I'll explain here. My 3 sneaky good teams, the Cincinnati Reds, the New San Francisco Giants, and the Detroit Tigers.
Detroit Tigers. Yeah, it was delayed. Detroit Tigers. That is a sneaky good
Sneaky
team.
good team, though.
Sneaky good
Javi
team.
Baez on like a 12-game hit streak.
Yeah.
They've actually got legitimate bats in the
And
lineup.
I think a couple of their better pitchers haven't even pitched a game yet. They're injured.
And so sneaky good to me is a team that you might not respect when you have a matchup with them, but they don't rattle you a little bit.
Sure are.
Cincinnati Reds. I watched the Reds play the other day. I think they got good pitchers. They've got a lineup that can put bat on the ball.
Yeah.
Reds will scare you now.
That's so funny because my girlfriend Melinda, her brother and her grandfather are both big Cincinnati Reds fans, and every time I'm over there, they're always complaining about the Reds. And every single time, the past like 3 times, they go, "I don't know, that team's sneaky good.
They're sneaky good, man.
They're not bad." And they're all like, "No, they're terrible." I go, "I don't know. I think they're sneaky good."
Teams need a little more respect there. You'll notice that all but one of the NL Central teams have been listed. More on that in a bit. Teams to circle back on,
love
Brian.
this one.
The Yankees, the Guardians, and the San Diego Padres.
Had a little trouble with the button there.
See,
for the
they
Guardians.
go a little longer than I wanted it to. So teams to circle back on, the Yankees got a good roster, but they don't have something there yet.
And they haven't really impressed me this year
And
yet.
they're in such a good division. I want to circle back and
Let's
see
circle
what's
back
going
on it,
on there. The Guardians, kind of same thing. The
I
Guardians
like
have a
the
losing
Guardians,
record.
though. I
They're
like
in a
'em,
terrible division.
I like them, though.
I want to circle back and see.
I think you're right. But
got good
great
pitching,
pitchers.
though.
Oh, man, great pitching.
And same thing with the Padres.
Yeah.
The Padres are behind the D-backs.
And they're supposed to be this loaded team.
Tatis
Let's
is
circle
dancing.
back.
I want to circle
But
back.
maybe they'll round into form a little later.
I don't want to
Circle
be too
back.
judgmental
I like
yet.
that.
Next category, now we're getting into the worst categories. Teams that make you hurl. These are teams that make you physically want to vomit when you see them play or hear their name. The Philadelphia Phillies. They're the only team that make you hurl.
Yeah,
I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory there. Teams that might be bad. We don't know yet. We got to see more. They might end up being good for all we know, but they might be bad. 3 teams here. The Washington Nationals. The Los Angeles Angels. And I'm sorry, Bryant, but I have to put them on here. The Seattle Mariners. They've been disappointing to this point.
Good point.
They might be good.
Might be. Julio's injured now.
This is a very May 1st list.
Yeah.
It's a big might be. I would tend to say that the Nationals probably end up being bad, but Josiah Gray had a great outing the other day.
He pitches again today.
They're getting better.
Yeah.
They're getting better. The Angels, let's see them do some winning first, okay? I mean, they might be bad.
Everyone wants to tout Shohei. Win some games first.
I mean, you got the same record right now as the Astros, which is you got that going for you. But I still think you might be bad. I need to see more before I'm going to say you're not bad. And the Mariners have been very disappointing. Losing record. Really, the only team they're better than in their division is the Athletics.
Can't hit the ball. But I will tell you something. If we have players on this list, Jared Kelenic, definitely higher on the list. He's had a great start of the season.
All right, 3 more categories here. Teams that are socks. Pretty self-explanatory. The Boston Red Sox and the Chicago White Sox.
I mean, what can you say? It's self-explanatory.
Pretty self-explanatory there, but that's the 3rd worst tier you can be. Is a sock. So you don't want to be a sock.
You got to have socks, though.
But you don't want to be a sock, Brian. Teams that I know are bad. By who?
I don't know who just hit that. It was the Braves, though.
Teams that I know are
Kevin Pillar.
Teams that I know are bad, Bryant.
Okay.
The Kansas City Royals. Very bad. And the Colorado Rockies. Now, I feel unfair to the Rockies. I actually kind of like this Rockies team.
Really?
They're just not doing any winning. I can't say that.
They're just not good.
I feel like I know they're bad. Yeah. I wanted to put them in might be bad. I didn't want to put the Royals out on an island, though. I feel like if I'm going to put the Royals in teams that I know are bad, I think the Rockies might be on the same tier as the Royals, so they have to go there. And my last tier, the bottom tier, the worst tier you can be in Major League Baseball is called teams that are the Oakland Athletics.
Fair.
And there's 2 teams in this category. It's the Oakland Athletics and it's the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's too bad.
I feel like it speaks for itself.
It's fairly explanatory.
Back after this, we got bets.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Looking for a high-efficiency planting solution? The Case IH 2150 Early Riser Planter combines the industry's most accurate planter technologies with a rugged row unit for a fast and uniform emergence. The Case IH 2150 Early Riser operates at your speed and adapts to unique field conditions so that you can maximize your yield potential. Stop in or call Mid-South Ag Equipment at 662-890-3141 to learn more. That's Mid-South Ag, your Case IH Equipment headquarters.
COVID-19 has cast a spotlight on the stark inequalities that drive poverty. The poorest communities in the U.S. and around the world are suffering the most. Oxfam believes we can put systems in place to protect health and livelihoods in the future if we work together with dignity and compassion. Learn how you can help offer safety to the most vulnerable and fight for a more resilient future at oxfamamerica.org. Sponsored by Oxfam America.
Heart failure, carpal tunnel syndrome, shortness of breath, stomach issues, lower back pain. How does it all add up? If you have heart failure and any of those seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, it's time to talk with your cardiologist and get the full picture. They may add up to transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed disease. Recognize the signs and discuss them with your doctor soon. Learn more at connectwithyourheart.com. That's connectwithyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
We're right in the middle of spring and summer's knocking at the door. And what's that I hear? You don't have a pool? Well, Family Leisure's happy to solve that issue for you because they have the lowest prices on pools in town. Plus, you can get a free liner upgrade during this pool sale. Want a spa? All spas in stock are up to $1,000 off. You want a play gym for the kids? They're on sale for under $2,000, and you can get special financing on any of those deals. Now, when you go to Family Leisure and you pick out what you want, I want you to tell that friendly salesperson, I heard on the radio I can get half off my installation. And that's true. You mention you heard this ad on radio, and you can get half off any installation. Pools, spas, play gyms, any installation. Don't go another year without. Get to Family Leisure, get a great deal, and get half off installation when you mention this ad. Family Leisure, Whitten Road at I-40, where family and fun come together.
Simple, smooth, and every sip as easy as the last. Tito's handmade vodka tastes just as good with tap water as it does with your favorite mixer. Back in the day, Tito distilled, hand-bottled, taste-tested, sent to a few friends, then taste-tested again to give you the finest juice around. No frills, no flavors, no fancy labels, just the good stuff. Just Tito's. For recipes, videos, and more, visit Tito'sVodka.com. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Now, back to Sports 56 Happy Hour on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Tito's Vodka. Here once again, Johnny Radio.
Acuna goes yard.
Yeah, do you want a score update, or do you have the score?
Wait, it's 6-1, right?
6-1, yeah. I didn't know if you had it in front of you. I was going to help you out.
Well, I get alerts whenever
see.
the Braves score or give up a run.
Just your Braves guy.
Yeah, well, they're on my power rankings.
That's right. You're third.
No, they're probably second.
Really?
Yeah.
In front of the fish?
Yeah, it just has to do with what's in market.
It's so
but I love
confusing
watching
whenever
the
you want
Marlins,
to talk
though.
about Miami sports. It's either the Fins or it's the fish.
Yeah,
it's so
you get it mixed up all the
I
time.
get mixed up
You really don't
all
get it
the
mixed
time.
up. You pretty much omit the term fins and you call them all fish.
Yes.
But a
The
dolphin is
dolphins
very
are the
famously
fish.
a mammal. It's not
Hey,
a
did
fish.
See the fish drafted last night?
Not a fish,
Not a
though.
fish.
It's a.
That's right.
It's a mammal.
It is a mammal.
A smart mammal too.
Only mammal without hair.
Mm-hmm. They also gang rape dolphins do. It's less nice though.
Did not expect that.
They do.
I know.
And they also pass around. John loves this one. They have
echolocation.
They get high off of whatever the chemical is in puffer fish. Whenever they get scared and puff up, so they'll scare a puffer fish and then pass it around with their noses or fins or whatever, like all getting high together. John loves to say that.
I'm sure he does.
He loves touting that one. I wonder why. I'm not sure. Brian, this is usually the segment during John's show where we make bets.
You got bets.
But you and I have our own segment that we have cornered the market on.
We sure have.
Talking your bets out. Mm-hmm. Do you have any that you've come to the table with already? I don't want bets you've already made today. So anything on the Braves, unless you're doing a live line right now, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything on the Braves. I've got a couple. My first one being your National Hockey Team. Minus 105 for the money line right now for the Rangers.
Okay.
Do you like that?
Right, is that what you're taking?
Or
you want to talk it out?
I want to talk it out. Should I take that? Should we maybe try to get an alt line? Maybe like minus. I don't know if you could do minus.
I think I've got enough invested in the Rangers winning this series already. I bet it to this morning at even odds. Though. I did not. I would not pay the 10.
You're right.
I would take it even, or you could. There's a book somewhere.
Sure.
Use your Bet Stamp app.
Yeah, I downloaded that.
Use your Bet Stamp app, and you can find an even line somewhere. I'm almost sure of it. But I do think, though, based on pretty much everything I've read today, plus 105 on Barstool.
Ooh.
Plus 105 on just Barstool. It looks like.
Wow.
Even money on BetMGM. 105 on Caesars. 105 on DraftKings. 104 on FanDuel. Now, the Devils have all the minus. If you want to take an alt line and take the Rangers minus, I think you're going to get good plus money on that one. But are you going to bet on a multi-score deficit and a Game 7 between two evenly matched teams on the road, no less?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
That's a good point. I might just take that one. Or maybe I'll go to draft or not. No, what was Barstool?
Barstool's plus money
and get
still.
The plus money.
So you can see what's going on there. See, that doesn't really give bettors that are listening to us any confidence, though, because you and I have already said over the course of this show, we're not the most. We're fairly casual National Hockey League observers Not very predictive.
So what do you
in
want
that
to go to,
regard.
baseball or
Well,
or
I just didn't
basketball?
know if you had a baseball one ready. I have some basketball ones ready.
Well,
I didn't know if you had a baseball
I
bet
haven't
ready
looked
to go.
at a lot of the baseball games yet. I do. You know how much I love Mackenzie Gore.
So you're unprepared. Then.
I'm unprepared.
Oh, okay.
You know how much I love Mackenzie Gore, though.
All right.
Him against Drew Smiley tonight, maybe a low-scoring affair.
Mackenzie
between
Gore of the
two.
Washington Nationals.
Of the
we
Washington
should say.
Nationals. Love Mackenzie Gore.
A team that might be bad. We don't know
might be
yet.
bad, but he's 3-1 with a 3.0 ERA against Drew Smiley, who's
Drew
been
Smiley
good this year.
almost threw a perfect game a couple weeks ago.
Just got run over by his catcher.
Jan Gomes, that's
Yeah.
right.
So I don't know, maybe an under there on the first 5.
An under.
Maybe.
I mean, if you really wanted to take a shot, though, you could get plus money on the Nationals to win a baseball game. Or first 5. If you like the starting pitcher matchup, take a little first 5.
First
take a
5?
flyer. Because
What's the first 5 right now?
I don't know.
First
this
5,
isn't a game I was looking at.
Nationals plus 110 on the first 5 money line.
That's what I'm saying.
Minus 130 on plus half run.
Well, but I like to get my money back if they
true.
tied, though. It's a very important
That's a good
factor
point.
because the Nationals are a team we talked about just a minute ago.
They might be bad.
They might be bad, and the Cubs might be good.
Might be good. So this is really complete opposite of each other on the spectrum.
But that's something, Bryant. One of my best football strategies for gambling is if something looks stupid, take it.
Take it.
And I mean, if all logic points to one thing, you should take the opposite.
Man, I love Mackenzie
For instance, for example, over 15.5 runs this weekend in Mexico City hit with flying colors. And that was the highest
we didn't
line.
even talk about the Mexico City game.
And the second game after
Went
that
way
one, they
under.
go, yeah, because they said 15.5 is too much. Let's go to 20.5.
But I don't even think they scored like 11 runs.
No,
It was like 4-4 in the 8th inning.
They didn't get close to it.
Crazy.
I think it was something was happening early, and then one of the pitchers, I just listened to MLB Network radio this morning, and they were doing a recap of yesterday's games, and the guy threw like 5 straight perfect innings or something like that after not starting well. Or
Really?
something. It was like he started first 2 innings weren't good, and one of the pitchers, who pitched for the Padres yesterday?
I have no clue.
Never mind then. I'm just talking out of my butt right now. Forget about it. My basketball bets for tonight, though, Brian, I've got some good ones.
Please. I'm going to write them down.
I think the Sixers team total over 52.5 points, and I think Tyrese Maxey goes under 24.5 points tonight.
Say that again.
I think the Sixers' first half team total
first half
goes under 52.5 points. The Celtics are a
Interesting.
good defensive team. This will be a close matchup, and I don't think Tyrese Maxey scores 24.5 points tonight. I think that total
You
is
love
set.
Maxey, too.
I do, but think about all the guards that play great defense
but
that
that's
the
what I'm
Celtics
saying.
have.
That it gets me. Whenever someone loves a player and goes like against them, it gives me more confidence because I know you're not homering it. You like. It'd be one thing if you said, I think Tyrese Maxey goes over 24.5.
I'm not a homer, Brian. That's
You're
one
not.
thing
That is true.
I refuse to be. And this one, I don't know if you take it now or not. It's hard to say because I think people might end up betting the Heat, or maybe not. People don't think the Knicks are going to drop 2 at home. So I really like as well
For tomorrow night.
The Knicks first half -4. I feel like take it now, right? People are going to hammer the Knicks, don't you think?
I think so.
Because they don't expect the Heat to steal 2 on the road.
The Knicks aren't going to lose 2 at home.
So I would say take that today. So -4 first half Knicks, but for the games tonight, Sixers team total under 52.5, and Tyrese Maxey under 24.5 points. Did we say a baseball game we were going to do?
We like the Nationals first 5 money line at plus 110.
Okay. We have to kill 50 more seconds.
Okay, well, you want to talk about another game?
I'm out of bets. We can't, Brian.
You don't like anything in the Nuggets
game?
game?
If we just start giving out bets we don't believe in,
People pay for
all
the
credibility is lost.
Yeah, this ain't Tiger basketball. I can't just
It's
be
in
giving
Tiger
out,
basketball
giving out
bankroll.
winners.
Shout out Greg Peterson, by the way.
Well, whoa! Shout out Brian Dacus.
Yeah, I don't like any of the games tonight. Do you?
In baseball?
No, against the spreads in basketball.
No,
I don't want to take the Nuggets again -4 after they just blew out. That one seems dangerous one.
That does seem
And then
dangerous.
Celtics are 10-point favorites. No
That's insane.
No, thank you. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. You know what, Brian? I will put my money in my mouth is.
Really?
And let's take the Rangers tonight. Get it at even money though. Go to your Barstool Sportsbook. I'll even tout a sportsbook. Go to the Barstool Sportsbook. Take the Rangers tonight. We will be back tomorrow.
Acura of Memphis invites you to experience the all-new